everybody, this is OCD Live. My name is Greymond, and today I wanted to talk to you about why does our brain do this to us when you have OCD? Why does it happen? Why do you get these thoughts? Because I find that that's a topic I get asked about again and again, pretty much in all my with all my clients and all my sessions. That it's hard to understand why your own mind would do this to you. So today I just wanted to discuss it and make it very clear what is happening, because I feel that the more you know about the mechanics of OCD, the more equipped you are to recover, basically. Because when you start to understand how OCD is very logical, the mechanics, that it's all repetitive stuff again and again and again, you stop being afraid of it. And when you stop being afraid of it, then you can actually be brave enough to not do the reassurance behaviors. And that's what the recovery is all about, is to stop reassurance, stop compulsion, stop avoidance. So why does our brain do this to us? When you have OCD, your first thought is, what if the worst thing happens and I will lose everything? That's usually the thought, okay? When your brain sends you this thought, it is the same thing as if you were in actual physical danger, not OCD danger, but actual real danger, and your mind didn't know what to do to help you. So it's sending you thoughts in order for you to do physical actions to protect yourself. So for example, okay, I'm going to give you an example again, in case you didn't listen to my other shows or my other videos. If you are in a situation of actual physical danger, say for example, like I said in the other videos, hope it's not boring for you, but you're walking into a forest and you get attacked by a bear. Not attacked, but you see a bear. So your mind remembers this incident when you run away, and then when you come back next time into the forest, it's going to bring that up again. Even if there's no bears in sight, even if you know for a fact there's no bears, you will still remember the incident, because your mind's main job is to protect you, to protect the organism, that is you, you know? So the same thing with OCD, that it's doing this to you not to hurt you, not to put you through this level of anxiety, but because it is certain that there's danger. And the reason why it's certain there's danger is because you constantly keep doing the reassurance. And that's why reassurance behaviors are so bad, because your mind takes that reassurance behavior to mean that the thought is real, because it doesn't understand that there's a disorder that makes you do this and all of this stuff, and it can get out of control. It only sees your signal. It doesn't understand even the content of the thought. And this is where a lot of people kind of get confused, is because they think that, well, why am I getting this thought? What does this mean about me? Why am I getting these feelings? And the only reason you're getting this thought and these feelings is because you reacted to it before. So your mind knows that this is very, very important to you, and at the same time, you were seeking reassurance before on this same thought. So if you were seeking reassurance on the thought that's important, that means you're in danger, because reassurance is an attempt to stay safe. And your mind definitely recognizes it as that. So if you are reassuring yourself, you're obviously in danger and you're trying to stay safe. So it better send you more thoughts in order to protect you. That is the basic reason why your mind does this. So the more reassurance you do, the more avoidance, the more compulsions, the more your mind is going to build it up to be a big, big thing, and the more the more thoughts it's going to give you, the more it's going to try to protect you, basically, by really making you feel worse and making more anxiety and all of that. So your recovery really is dependent on your ability to stop seeking reassurance. And the battle starts now. Doesn't start tomorrow, doesn't start a week from now. It starts now. You can't wait any longer, because the longer you wait, the more reassurance you will do and the more compulsions you will do. And all of this will make you over time feel worse, because every time your mind's thinking that this thought is more and more relevant, or this type of thought that you're having. And it doesn't matter what is the topic of your thoughts. It could be anything. The only thing that matters is that you're taking them seriously. And that is actually what separates a person with OCD from a person who doesn't have OCD, because a person who doesn't have OCD will have the same thought, but just for a second, and will not look any further than that. For example, let's take a thought of driving and thinking that you ran over somebody, right? That's a very common OCD thought. But a person who doesn't have OCD will also be driving one day and also feel a bump that maybe they didn't look and didn't see a speed bump, but they felt it as the car was moving, and they thought, oh wow, I don't remember seeing a speed bump. Maybe I hit something, and then they're just like, it doesn't seem like it, and just move on, But the person with OCD will start to go back to the spot, try to recreate the situation in their mind, remember where everybody was, remember if there was anybody else on the street, remember how everything sounded, was there any kind of strangeness happening, try to really recreate the event, which makes things worse. So, so all of this stuff, it's just, you just really have to make sure that you're not paying attention to it, and it doesn't matter how anxiety provoking the consequences of your thought are, because that's all it scares you. It scares you not only with the thought itself, but also with the possibility of the consequences of what will happen if this thought is true. And the more you believe it, the more you think about it, the more scary it feels. So you start to really examine, you start to really analyze in order to make sure that you're safe, and at the same time sending a signal to your brain that you're in danger, and then your brain takes that signal and sends you more thoughts. So you start to, you kind of close the loop, and that loop keeps going and going, and it's like a snowball effect where a little tiny snowball or a little tiny thought just keeps wrapping around and around and around and becomes this giant thing. But when you kind of unravel it, you know that there was nothing even there in the first place, but you keep going around and around because you're doing the reassurance. So when you get a thought, you have to make sure that you're telling your brain the right stuff, because again, always keep in mind that your brain is a machine. That part of the brain that's sending you this thought has no way of knowing what even the thought is on an emotional level that you know. It doesn't have an emotional attachment to it, not any more than to any other thought. It's just like a, have you seen like a police officer or a depending on what country you're from. Sometimes it's police officers, sometimes it's just like regular people stand in the middle of an intersection and guide traffic. Okay, so this is what your mind does. This is what that part of the mind does. It's guiding traffic of thoughts. This thought is important, it's going this way. This thought is not important, it's going that way. That is all that it's doing. And you are sending that mind, the part of the mind, incorrect signals how to guide this traffic by your reassurance and avoidance and compulsions. So the more incorrect signals you send, the more confused it gets, the more it sends you thoughts, the more anxious you get from these thoughts, and the snowball effect continues. So to undo it, really have to buckle down and force yourself not to do any more reassurance, any more avoidance, any more compulsion. And when it comes to dropping it, there's also a second issue here. And just like we went over of what makes the mind send you these thoughts, how to make them go away. Okay, so your mind doesn't know what thoughts it's sending, but at the same time it knows that something is very important, and it knows that this type of a signal or this type of a thought, whatever it is, because it doesn't understand it on that level like you do. It doesn't have an emotional attachment to it. It just understands that this type of a thought is very important. So it's going to send you more of this type of a thought, whatever it is, okay? So when you stop doing reassurance, when you stop doing avoidance and compulsions, your mind is not just going to switch off and say, okay, not important, because you've spent some time doing these things. So you've spent some time doing the compulsions and avoidance and reassurance. So your mind has flagged it over the years multiple times that this thought is important. So think of how many flags has it put on this thought over the years, or over a year, or over a month, however long your OCD is lasting, right? So now when you say all of a sudden, okay, this thought is not important to me, it's not going to just switch it off, because it knows that there's a level of danger that you've been associating with it for a long time. So it's afraid, not afraid, but the safety mechanism works in such a way that it's not going to drop it because it thinks that, well, what if there is a danger? You know, what if the danger comes and you're not expecting it? So that it doesn't think that, but that's how the safety mechanism works, right? That your mind is going to keep sending you this thought, even if you're not doing any reassurance, it's going to now keep sending you this thought for a little bit while longer, okay? Not forever, but for a little while longer, just to make sure you are really safe. So it's going to basically observe what you're doing and say, okay, this is, again, another metaphor for this is, okay, let's go over the metaphor with the bear in the forest, right? So just like I was saying that if you get scared of the bear in the forest for real once, you go back to the forest and you'll see the bear everywhere. And say, but they're not like for real, but you'll feel like there's a bear behind every bush, behind every tree. So you go in back once into the forest and you're super on high alert, see bear everywhere. You go in the second time, you go in the third time. But, you know, and it's going to send you these thoughts, but they're going to start to diminish. So maybe the first time you go back, you constantly remember it. The second time you go back, you remember it, but then there was a few moments where you forgot. And more so as you keep coming back to the situation. Another metaphor for this is if you're crossing on a red light. Your mind remembers that you crossed on the red light, that was the wrong thing to do, very important. So it's sending you the thoughts of, well, you know, don't do that again, basically. And then when you go, say, for example, there is no lights, it's an empty street, blocked off street, whatever you want to say, right? Nothing there. But your mind will still send you that thought when you're crossing the road. Like, are you sure? Are you sure you're safe? Maybe you should look. Maybe you should get reassurance. Maybe you should check. And if you check again, your mind will think, he's checking or she's checking. That means there is a danger. Let me send it again. So do you see how there is a very strong mechanism that makes OCD do almost the same thing again and again? It's extremely predictable disorder. And when you start to predict what it's going to do next, you stop being afraid of it because you see that it's just, you know, the mind kind of going off of this program that's a false program, you know? So, but again, you know, as you stop with the compulsions and with all forms of reassurance, you will see that you feel better, but the thoughts are still being sent. So don't be scared of that. And actually, in the beginning, as you stop, especially if you stop a lot of things at once, you will get what's called a pummeling of thoughts. You will get more thoughts than you've ever gotten before, and that's because your mind thinks, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You are crossing the street on the red light. You are going into the forest where there's a bear. You are doing everything wrong. Stop right now." So it's sending you all of these thoughts, just a pummeling basically of thoughts all at once, trying to get you to stop what you're doing and go back to the safety of the reassurance, of the avoidance, of the compulsions. And this is the first period of recovery, and this is actually a part of the recovery because your mind sees that you're doing the wrong thing and it sees that you're sending the wrong signal. So it sees that you're sending a signal of safety where before, to this exactly the same situation and thought, you were sending a signal of danger. And it doesn't like it because it thinks that you're doing the wrong thing. It thinks you're doing the wrong thing, okay? So trying to stop you by sending you all kinds of thoughts, and they might be thoughts that don't even really make much sense, but they're trying to scare you, and there might be a lot of them. So all of this is very, very common, and you can't be afraid of it. This is part of the recovery. As you can see from me telling you how it really is in a logical sense, it's completely, fully logical. It makes sense for your mind to do that. And you just, you just have to live through this period and keep going, because that is the hardest period of your entire recovery, is that first week. If you can, or first 2 weeks, depending on how long you've had the thought. The longer you've had the thought originally, the harder your mind will try to get you back into it, because the more focused it is on how dangerous this thought is, and the more it's focused on bringing you back to what it thinks is safety, right? So you just really have to buckle down, keep busy, do whatever it is you need to do, to not do any of these reassurance and avoidances. Because if you keep doing them, what's going to happen is you're going to be stuck in this period where on one side you're sending a signal to your mind that this is not relevant and you want to keep going with the recovery, and then on the other side doing the compulsions. So you're stuck in this very extreme period and you need to move past it in order to feel better. So prepare yourself, because the first few weeks are the toughest, but then afterwards it gets much easier, because then if you've sort of, you can call it passed, like a test, right? That you've passed these 2 weeks, 1 week, whatever, and your mind sees that, okay, you went through the pummeling stage, you're okay, nothing really bad happened, you're fine, so maybe this thought is not as important. Maybe you're right this time, and all that stuff before was wrong. Maybe you're doing the right thing by disregarding this thought. And then your mind will start to help you. But you have to get to that point. It's not right away. So as you go through it, you will see that, oh, okay, you know what? I was able to do this, and I was able to do that. And, I got some thoughts, but I'm okay. I'm generally okay. So, and this is how you know that you're recovering. Because what is the recovery? The recovery is being able to go anywhere you want and not getting OCD thoughts. So as you are in the process of recovery, you need to be able to more and more go anywhere you want and have OCD thoughts slowly lose their power over you. So, because your mind needs to adjust, it's not going to be overnight, because like I said, you've been telling it the wrong thing to do for a while, and it's gonna be some time. When I was recovering from OCD, what worked for me is that in the moment where, say, I have some sort of an OCD trigger where I would feel that, oh no, you start to get that feeling like in your body, and you're starting to feel tense, you're starting to feel like, okay, I'm gonna freak out right about now, the best thing I found to do was to just leave the situation. So not like in an avoidance type of sense, but get busy with something else. Refocus your mind. Give it a lot of stimulation. So for example, say, okay, for example, you're driving, okay? And you hit something and you think, oh my God, what if it's a person or whatever? And your mind starts to go there. Well, look back, take a look, let me see, but try to remember all of this stuff. The best thing you can do is put your radio on, listen to the song, sing along with the song, then go, stop somewhere along wherever you're driving, go into a store, check out some things in the store, maybe talk to the store clerk, just hello, whatever weather, something, that's, I mean, if you're driving, because you're kind of limited if you're driving. If you're at home and you get a thought, again, call a friend, start talking about something, not about OCD, but just about something, and don't listen to people talk, you do the talking, or do a lot of the talking anyways. So you're forcing your mind to focus on coming up with something to say rather than thinking about the thought. And that will give your mind a lot of other things to worry about besides the OCD. And at the same time, you're sending a very strong signal that the thought is irrelevant. That everything is fine, the thought is irrelevant, and I'm just going to keep going. That's the signal you're sending when you're doing all of these things. So, and obviously, the worst thing to do would be to, look back, drive back, get out of the car, check it out, all of this stuff. This stuff you cannot absolutely do. So you just have to kind of make sure that you are always, especially right now as you are recovering, you always have to make sure that you are taking control of your brain and of the OCD, and you are saying, okay, I'm doing what I want to do. I'm gonna be always on the lookout for OCD, and when it comes, and it will come, you have to be realistic too, that when it comes, I'm gonna choose to ignore it. I'm not gonna pay attention to it. I am gonna win, and OCD is gonna lose. And think of it like that every situation is a battle, and your brain is looking very, very carefully at what you're about to do. So if you're gonna do something important, or if you're gonna treat the thought as if it's important, the thought is just gonna get worse. And if you treat it as if it's not important, the thought is gonna go away. And you may have to make sure that you're sending a very clear signal, because the people who don't have OCD always send a clear signal to their mind whether the thought is true. So they're always saying, okay, this thought is important, I'm going to keep thinking about it, or this thought is not important, I'm going to let it go. But when a person has OCD, they always want the 100% proof, and that's what becomes a real problem, where they think that, well, I have to know for sure, I would like to know for sure, and it starts to become an issue all in itself, basically. So you want to really pull back and say, I'm not paying attention, I'm not dealing with this, I'm just going to let it go, and I'm moving on. So, and that's what's going to make you recover, that's what's going to make it better for you, you know. So that's the thing, it's a process, and you will have some days where you don't feel so well, and some days where you fall down, basically, and you give in to OCD and you do the reassurance. And in those days, it's important to, as much as you can, even when you're feeling really low, as much as you can, pick yourself up and try to move forward. Don't stay, in your room or in your bedroom, or just in your house, by yourself. Be around people, do a lot of things, and just get busy. And also, you have to kind of take a look at really what OCD does to your life. Sometimes, I find that people who recover the best and the fastest are people who really get to a point where OCD is just taken so much joy out of their lives that it stops being worth it to even care what the truth is or find out. It's the thoughts are more are taking away more from the person's life than the actual possibility of what if or the consequences. It starts to become the same, that the person would rather have the consequences come true once almost than deal with this OCD again and again and again. And when you get to that point where you don't care anymore, you just want it gone, it's just enough, that is the point where the person just says, I'm done with this. And that is the point where a person recovers very, very quickly. So, because at that point, they're kind of willing to give up the avoidance. But this is the point of a kind of that's the lowest point that you can get to with right before the recovery, with how severe OCD gets. So I would really encourage you to, if you're not at that point, don't wait until you get to that point. Start now, because one unfortunate thing about OCD is that it doesn't stay the same. So it either gets better or it gets worse. If you do compulsions, you're basically adding compulsions every single day for yourself. So it's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse for you the more compulsions you add, or the more avoidance, or the more reassurance. And you're limiting your life so much. And yet, you can stay in the house and don't do anything and don't go anywhere, and make sure you don't have any kind of OCD triggers, and OCD will still get you. I guarantee you that it'll find something in the house or in your room or wherever you hide yourself in the corner. It's going to still find something, maybe from your past or from the future, that's going to get you. That's just how it works. So there's no point in hiding, there's no point in avoiding, because it doesn't help in the overall aspect of recovery. It just makes things worse. You need to say that. And I find that a lot of the time the person is so desperate because, all we want to do here is feel good, right? Like, it's not like you're asking for the world. And when you're in that desperate situation of feeling so bad, you just kind of sometimes succumb to reassurance because you just want to feel better and you can't deal with it any longer. But you always have to keep it in perspective that in the long run, you are making yourself worse when you do this. So even in the lowest, your lowest time, basically, your hardest time, you just have to kind of at least pick yourself up enough to put yourself in a lively situation, like I said, around people, around different things happening. So your mind has something else to focus on, and from there you will be more equipped to disregard the thoughts. Because it really works. Because your mind is just like a computer. It can't handle more than a certain amount of tasks. It's going to start to lag at some point. So, and that's what you want your mind to do. You want your mind to not be able to hyper focus on this specific thought as it's been doing, because that's what really kind of makes OCD worse. So I don't think we're gonna have any more questions today. Unless you guys have a question, please feel free to ask. If not, or if you don't feel comfortable yet, I'm here every single day, 11 to 11:30 Eastern. So please feel free to ask me a question. If not today, then tomorrow. And I really want to help, because I have been through it myself, and I see that most doctors are of no help at all. And I would really just like to help you. So please feel free. If you don't want me to, if you don't want to write the question in the chat, you can email me directly to info@youhaveocd.com. So I can tell you kind of privately. Just let me know though, if you do send me an email, let me know if it's something you want me to talk about on the air, or if it's something you want me to just email you about privately. So also, if you visit youhaveocd.com, there's books for sale that I have about recovery, and also there's one-on-one recovery package sessions with me. So that's something else if you're interested. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.